Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Actors Theater Unscripted. I'm Erica Denise, the Director of Learning and Creative Engagement here at Actors Theater. I'm so excited about this panel that I have here today. I want to go ahead and bring them on the screen. Oh, goodness. So today, our topic is protesters after the announcement. So we want to be responsive and talk about what the Attorney General presented to the public, what was not presented. We're going to get into a whole discussion, okay, y'all? So please stay tuned. Feel free to ask questions. Donations. Please donate. Half of the donations received will go to La Casita and the other half will go to Actors Theater. So if you find it in your heart and you want to support Actors Theater or La Casita, please hit the donate button at the bottom of the screen or go to actorstheater.org. All right, without further ado, I want to jump into our panelists. I want to have them go ahead and introduce themselves. Let's start with Antonio T. May Taylor.
Hello, everyone. Erica, thanks for having me. My name is Antonio T. May Taylor, and I'm the co-owner of Wave FM Online, which is a black-owned multimedia platform, live streaming platform on all social media sites. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Brad. And Brad is also a repeat guest to Actors Theater Unscripted. You may have seen him in a few episodes back. Brad, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself if you're not having technical difficulties?
I'm good. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
My name is Brad Harrison. I am owner of Urban Max Media and also the Urban Voices Radio Show. And thank you for having me on the show.
Thank you, Brad. Welcome back. And last but not least, Maxwell Mitchell.
How are you, Erica? Yes, Maxwell Mitchell, 502 Livestreamer. And I appreciate you having me on the show Unscripted, Erica. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much. So let's jump right into the question of all questions. We all heard the announcement from the Attorney General. Were you expecting a different result? And me, I've been feeling it for months that they were not going to be indicted. And I just kind of felt it. And then when the board started going up downtown and on all of the businesses and stuff, I'm like, they're prepping for letting us down. So were you all expecting a different result? And like, how did you feel upon hearing the news that the officers would not be charged for Breonna Taylor's murder?
Look, I was shocked, and I shouldn't be. I shouldn't be because we've been down this road before. But I was shocked being that I was privy to so much of the information. I've interviewed a lot of people surrounding the case. I followed the case. I followed the case from beginning to end. So I know all the ins and outs of it. So I'm saying to myself, there is no way they can't come back without an indictment. And lo and behold, that's exactly what Daniel Cameron did. Exactly what he did. He played politics.
Right.
Exactly what he did. So I was shocked.
I wasn't. I kind of felt it. I felt it in my spirit that it wasn't going to happen. Antonio, how did you feel?
I wasn't shocked at all. I knew that anytime you're dealing with the judicial system, that at the core it is politics. Understanding who Daniel Cameron is, understanding why he rose to the ranks in his AG position. He's Mitch McConnell's understudy. So you kind of understand the dynamic and how that works. So I was not surprised at all. I think what was most shocking was that how they did not even indict any of the officers for shooting into her apartment, but the neighbor's apartment, right? That's what all of us. I don't think any of us expected that type of just disregard for her life, disregard for Kenny Walker's life. I don't think we expected that type of just evasive, just not even caring about, how we felt about it. Like, we're not even going to charge this woman with shooting into her apartment or killing her. We're gonna log it off to the neighbors. That was the shocking part. But we really didn't. And when I say we, I talk about those who are in Jefferson Square Park, the day ones. We never did expect anything from Daniel Cameron because we understand with that whole system and what he's there for.
Right. So, Max, how did you feel? And as a 502 live streamer, you've been there since the beginning, documenting every day, and you've had your finger on the pulse of what's happening downtown a little more than most of us. What was your reaction, and how were you feeling leading up to the announcement from the Attorney General, and then after the announcement? What were your thoughts and feelings?
Leading up to the announcement, it really did feel like a preparation aspect. I had been seeing boards go up since maybe the first day and the second day when the looting happened from outsiders, and then around the date of that announcement, boards are going up more aggressively, and you see these cement blocks going on the ground, and you have to say to yourself, this does not look like preparation for a good verdict that people down here want to hear / see. But that led me to another thought process: is who knew the answer beforehand? Like, does the city just like get this feeling like, oh, this is going to happen? I also considered Daniel Cameron's tenure, right? So he got sworn in December 2019, November 2019. This is it's such a big case. The largest case I've ever seen to take it on. Tom Warren recusing himself and passing this case on to Daniel Cameron. Like, I started questioning, was he ready for it? Was he going to mess this up? And, in my opinion, he did. But, how did I feel beforehand? It felt, I was not surprised by the verdict. I was surprised that, I don't know, nothing happened to the other officers, but by what it is they went off of and learning, again, after the verdict now, learning, information the grand jury had and / didn't have, I guess I'm not surprised by it. Just so much corruption all throughout this entire case, and that seems to be ever beckoning, honestly.
Going back to you, Antonio, I've made a note. I loved how you used your theater background and said that Attorney Cameron was the understudy.
Right.
I just wanted to point that out. Antonio is a fellow community actor as well.
Yes.
So he wears many hats. So I love that reference. So
502 live streamer too. So
yes,
my
all
brother.
of you. The three of you are 502 live streamers, and you all, thank you so much for your service and for documenting the truth as it is happening, because we know that there are some differences in how the stories are being announced between the media and then the 502 live streamers. And so talk about that. How did you even get involved with becoming a live streamer? Like, what made you do that? And this is kind of a new medium. I don't think that we've seen live streamers as active as the ones in Louisville for a case this big. How did you get involved with that, and why did you get involved?
Maxwell, yeah, because you're the
understood. Yeah, so for me, getting downtown and being there with everyone was just like my biggest thought process when I arrived. It was sort of second nature to pull that phone out of my pocket, turn it sideways. I don't necessarily enjoy shooting in a portrait. I'm a landscape horizontal shooter, if you will, but I look at my phone and it's like, it's 50 people. I look at my phone again and it's 2.5 thousand people. It's like, people really care about this. They want to get down there, but may not be able to, or afraid to, or I don't know. So on day one right there, I saw it was important to keep that camera rolling, if you will, but at the time not having an external battery pack, but nonetheless, that's what muscle memory is what led me to start live streaming it. But then, seeing how important this was for other people who need / wanted to see it is what kept me going. One of the reasons that kept me going. And then the next thing being, this is the truth. The unedited aspect. And I see that more and more as the days went in, as mainstream news putting out false narratives that are contradicted by the live streams themselves.
Antonio, why'd you get into it?
Let me start here first. I feel like we all have live stream for a while. Phone out, you press, live button on that Facebook app or that Instagram app or that Snapchat app. That's what you're doing. You're live streaming. So I feel like we've been doing that for a while. When I say we, I mean a lot of us. But what activated me to actually go out and live stream the protest was on that first day I saw CTES in front of that megabus, and I just had to be a part of the action. I just had to be down there. It's who I am. It's what I do. I always tell the story of how I was at the first Million Man March, and I thought the revolution would begin then. You know, I was always waiting for it to begin, and it never did. And so it just felt like, okay, CNC Ted's in front of that megabus. This was the time. This was the time that I've been waiting on for over 20 years. So when I got down there to that location on Jefferson Street in front of that megabus, it just felt surreal. And I just knew that this was a moment that could turn into a movement. And I understood that this was going to be history.
Yeah.
And what was so revealing about what happened and was so advantageous to all of us, Brad and Maxwell included, is that, you know, we've been really trying to tell the public that independent media and Black media is the source to really get the raw truth.
Right.
Unedited, it's uncut, and it's the truth as you see it and as you interpret it yourself. And then as a spectator, as a person who looks at it, you can immediately react to it. You can comment. You can immediately engage. So that's the way to go. And I just feel I'm just so grateful now that people honestly know that live streaming is where you're going to get the truth. Mainstream media does have its role, but they for so long have controlled the narrative, and they represented what the narrative is. And they have not told our story from our perspective for a long while. And a lot of us have been frustrated because of that. So now it feels like we got the chains off and we finally got the respect we deserve. We're finally breaking down doors that we couldn't break down. Barriers, Maxwell Mitchell getting that wonderful interview, and also Brad getting that wonderful interview with our chief last week, you know, is wonderful. Those are opportunities that we may have not even seen before this happened, because we now have the access that we really have never had. So it's a blessing. It has been a blessing for our
So Brad, what are your reasonings? Why did you get involved with the live streaming that you have done, and why is it important to you to tell the true narrative?
Okay, technically I'm not a 502 live streamer. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to be down at the square as much as Max and T May were, but I work a lot in the downtown area. So during the day, I'm downtown working all the time. So I just happen to be on location, and I'll pull out my phone. But initially, I saw Maxwell's live. And I didn't know Maxwell at the time. And I saw his live, and I was like, wow, somebody's bringing us a vivid image of what's taking place at these protests at night. And it was a clear, well, I just met him a couple weeks ago, or last week, so I know he's like 6'5" now. So now I know why the images are so clear, because he towers over everybody. But he was able to give us a clear look. So once that started, I focused on trying to meet all the people involved with the case. From my day work, I knew Tom Wide, so I brought him in, got his perspective on the case on the radio show. I knew some people that were friends of Miss Palmer, so I brought Miss Palmer. I think I'm the first person ever to interview Miss Palmer. So I brought her and Kenneth Walker in, and I just started taking it on from that aspect, like I was trying to solve the case. So I'm getting all this information, and look, we always, in our community, there's always this narrative or this rhetoric that corruption takes place, and we say by the man or whatever we want to call it. And walking through this case, I wasn't aware that the corruption was that deep and on such a high level. And on this case, the corruption went all the way up as far as Mayor Fisher and then on to Daniel Cameron. And I'm watching all this unfold in front of my eyes. And at times I'm saying I couldn't believe it, but it was right there. You know what I mean? It was right there. That case was covered up from the beginning. For whatever reason, it was covered up from the beginning. Mayor Fisher was complicit in covering it up. Daniel Cameron helped cover it up. Chief Conrad helped cover it up. And if I don't want to mispronounce his name, I think it was Schroeder, the chief that took over. He helped cover it up. So now we have Yvette Gentry. So hopefully, maybe we'll get some type of insight into what happened in that department. But
I personally feel they brought a chief in from the outside purposely. Anybody involved in the higher rankings of LMPD at the time when Breonna Taylor was killed, and I say murdered because she was murdered. At the time when Breonna Taylor was murdered, is complicit. So Schroeder was a right-hand man of Conrad. So I didn't even understand him taking over. It was the same person. But yeah, I just watched the corruption unfold, and I'm sitting there with my mouth open, but it made me more anxious to apply pressure to him, and that's what I tried to do.
So, Brad, I'm going to come back to you because I know you did listen to the 20 hours of the recordings that came out, and I want you to give us some information on what you found out after listening to that. But Max, I want to go to you, and I just want to commend you because you have done an extraordinary job broadcasting the protest and what's happening. And I remember watching you one day. Brad just disappeared. I don't know where he went. But I remember you rode your bike like you were stroking from Indiana to the 2nd Street Bridge. I mean, and it was just like I was watching this live action feed. I mean, it was amazing. So your stamina is amazing. I'm sure you are in the best shape you've been in your life for riding your bike every day.
I feel like
Yeah.
I mean, I just commend you. And then you had some footage of the shooting of Tyler Girth.
yes.
I believe you were the only one that had that footage. So walk us through that moment and what that was like. Can you tell us what happened? Give us a play by play of
I
what
will.
actually happened that day.
Yes. So honestly, that moment right before that horrific moment happened, it was a moment of peace, a transitional peace. We had dealt with American freedom fighters who had come into town that same day, and you know, uh, the city had set up, rails, barricades along Jefferson Street to create separation between AFFs and protesters, but they never came downtown as a group anyway. They apparently went to Thurman Hutchins Park.
You
Sorry, I put
muted.
it on mute there for a second so that truck went by. But yeah, and so a few of us went out there to talk to them, and I noticed that one by one they were departing from that park, and I was wondering, is this a distraction? Are they going downtown in singles? And I was reading online about them, you know, I don't know, wanting to, they were having feuds with their leader, right? And so they were feuding with the leader and wanting to handle the situation themselves as individuals. So, it made me wondering, afraid, like, what is about to happen downtown? So you fast forward right before that moment, I'm at Jefferson Square Park and I hear pop, pop, and two shots going in the air. And you got a crowd of people running away from one particular area. And so, immediately what goes through my head in these types of situations is, number one, I need to look for at least 3 points of safety. So I find them within what felt like 8 milliseconds. And then after that, it's time to go live, So I turned the live on, I had to rush, so I didn't write a description. And I zoom in on the guy I want to talk about that for a second. I say the guy because the person that I saw was dressed head to toe, covered up, and their form as far as a shooter was, it looked fundamental, if you will. It made me think immediately this was American freedom fighters, and but I just didn't know. But nonetheless, I kept it on him, and so. I'm staying low, moving very slowly, and all of a sudden, I hear fire coming from all around me, above, left, right, behind. So now it's like before I get shot, I need to get to a place of what I hope is safety. So I go around the park, uh, camera's shaking. I get to a point of safety, and then the gunfire stopped, and I walk to the middle, and to the sad state of just see what happened to Tyler Girth at that point. And and at that point I lost visual of the shooter, but come to find it wasn't an American freedom fighter. It was, the person that we found out who it was. But yeah, that's what happened that day. I just calming my breathing down, keeping the camera steady, because I thought to myself, like, well, number one, I need to stay safe, and number two, this needs to be streamed. This needs to be seen. We need footage of this person, because yeah, the streams tell the truth. And there we go.
Absolutely. Again, thank you for that footage, and just for your service in general. And Antonio, I think that same day that I saw Maxwell ride his bike from Indiana on Second Street, I think that was when they put the banner up on the bridge. And I think you were down there. I could be mixing the dates up, but I vaguely remember you confronting a police officer. Tell us what that was about and what you were saying and what the police officer's response was. You're on mute, babe. Yeah.
Can you hear me now? Okay. That officer, his name is Lieutenant Courtney Jackson. We actually had an opportunity to talk after that incident happened. So when we got down to when the 502 live streamers got down to the Second Street Bridge, at the moment we arrived, it was volatile. Like, the police officers were very, very upset that we were in front of the Second Street Bridge, blocking traffic, and that the protests were continuing. They were on edge. That's the first thing that I noticed. Like, I had never noticed the tension with the police being that high. They were angry. And so what I try to do anytime that I'm out live streaming, because I always tell people, look, I'm live streaming and I'm working, but I'm also a black man, so I'm protesting. So anytime I'm holding my phone up, it is a protest. A protest for justice for Breonna. It's a protest of me as a black man trying to get my rights. So it's many dynamics to what I do. But don't get it twisted. I'm protesting as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, but when I approached Courtney, Lieutenant Courtney, Officer Courtney Jackson, what he wanted to reiterate to me was that, hey, brother, I don't know why you all are mad at me. I'm mad at the same things that you all are mad at. When I take this uniform off, I am a black man. When I wake up in the morning, I'm a black man. It's not this blue that you see. So the same thing you deal with, I deal with as a black man. You don't know what we go through. And so, I listened to him and I heard what he was saying. And what I said to him in response was that what you all as black officers need to do, don't take what we're doing personal, because it's not personal. We're not against you. We are against the system that you all work. That's what we're against. And that's what we have to fight. So we're actually fighting for you as well. But we need you to be in the fight with us. We need you to be committed. So that was the conversation that we were having, just to try to, tussle and figure out, because we have to coexist with police officers, right?
Mm-hmm.
No one wants to see a world without police officers, and we're going to be here. So it's that constant struggle and that dynamic when it comes to black officers. Now, what was a challenge for me was that picture of us showed up on the front page of the Courier Journal. Mm-hmm. And I got many calls and inboxes about that picture because it was so misrepresented. It seemed like it was two black men going at it, and that's not what it was. It was just a conversation between two black men, and we're both emotional, but we didn't hate each other. We weren't mad. We wasn't getting ready to throw blows, but that picture, because a picture is worth 1,000 words. And that's kind of what the perception of that picture looked like. So I was very careful to really try to clear that up. And I know, I hate to be long-winded, but I want to tell you the whole side of the story. I know Rachel Platt, who used to be on WHS 11, she was doing a panel discussion, and I saw that picture as the cover art for the discussion, the community. And so she, I think it was on maybe Sadiqa Reynolds' post. And what I said is that, I wish I would have been informed about this event happening, because my likeness and my image is being misrepresented.
Right.
And so she was gracious enough to say, "Oh no, Antonio, can I call you?" So I gave her my number, and we did have a wonderful conversation, Erica. And what I told her was that at this point in time, her conversation that she was having was about the community healing. And what I told Rachel was that at this time, I'm not interested in having conversations about healing, because we're trying to get justice for Breonna. So this is not the time to be having that conversation. So I'm not interested. And then I said, you can use the picture as long as you don't misrepresent what that picture is, and you explain that.
Right.
Again, we had a wonderful conversation, and she understood where I was coming from. I did try to urge her to not have that conversation at this time. Let's wait to a later date, and I would participate. But she chose to go along with that date, and I just told her that I couldn't be a part of it because right now it's not a time for healing. We're fighting for justice,
Right.
you know. And she told me that she would get back with me and let me know how the conversation went, which she did. So that was just a moment that we, you know, that I really felt like we have to control the narrative, because at turn they're trying to. When I say they, I'm talking about the LMPD. They are really trying to their tone, their narrative. They're trying to tell a story. Same thing with the Courier Journal. And we just have to make sure that we are in control of our own stories.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad that you said that the protests are not against individual police officers, and that the protests we're protesting the system that is in place. And everybody knows that all officers are not inherently bad. But has anybody had the conversation with the good police officers and asked them, why aren't you uncovering the bad apples that's making your whole police force, look as if it's corrupt? Because you have to know that there are some bad apples in your bunch. So are they fearful? Like, what, has anybody had that conversation with the officers? Like, you can uncover the truth. You know what is actually going on. Why are you being silent?
Look, I've had that conversation with several officers, and it's a conversation that they choose to kind of ignore. But this is the reality, and it's not just LMPD, it's nationwide. The culture of the police department is a us versus them culture, and that's what it is. And they have a blue code of silence, and they're going to stick to that. And that's just, and that needs to change, because police officers are in the community to serve the citizens. We pay the police officers, so their job is to serve the citizens. But as you notice, as this case was progressing, you had an email come out from Mattingly, and it gave off us versus them. Then you had I forget her name, but it was a female sergeant. She put out an email, and it was a us versus them, a thug mentality. These are the people that work at Walmart, as if people that work at Walmart are beneath them, and that's a mentality that needs to change. And what people didn't realize, look, this Breonna Taylor was our modern day Rosa Parks. Breonna Taylor wasn't the first person killed by law enforcement. When Breonna Taylor's case happened to catch on in the media for whatever reason it did. But we weren't just fighting for justice for Breonna Taylor. Breonna Taylor represented the racial profiling that goes on, the discrimination that goes on in the workplace, just being black. Finally now, after we saw George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, it's finally okay to be black. And I tell people it's okay to be black. And all of us on this stream, we've all pushed a black platform for years. But I remember 4 or 5 years ago when I was trying to push a program called Black Saturdays. And I couldn't even get the press to cover it because covering something black was like taboo. And we're the only group in America. You have I tell people all the time, you have like you may have the Jewish community. The Jewish community is able to celebrate bar mitzvahs or certain celebrations within the community. Every year we have St. Patrick's Day. That's an Irish celebration. The black community has never been able to celebrate itself outside of something that white America approved of. And we fought this struggle for so long. We had in America, we had to fight a struggle to wear our hair a certain way in the workplace. We've had to fight the system of white supremacy. And white supremacy doesn't mean, when we say the word white supremacy, people think of people with hoods on and sheets. No, what we're saying is that in America, look, I use myself as an example. My name is Brad Everett Harrison, right? My parents, if you didn't know, that's the whitest name in America, right? But my parents named me that name because they wanted me to get a job. That just shows you the discrimination in America. If I had a name that's deemed a black name, I may not get a call back for a job. So everything in America has been set up that a European name is the standard. A European idea of beauty is the standard. If you like a particular culture, movie, musical, it had to be something that was not our culture or it wasn't accepted. Now is the first time that it's been okay to. It's like I'm picturing myself every day, like, man, I'm watching McDonald's tweet out Black 365 and companies putting Black Lives Matter on the banners, and this is what we've been talking about, and people shouldn't have to die for this to happen.
Right. Yeah, I think that, Brad, I'm glad you brought that up because I have seen the shift in how Black people are being treated and recognized by organizations, larger corporations and organizations. But I'm also a little leery too, because you just putting up a solidarity statement on your website or, putting hashtag say her name doesn't necessarily mean that that organization is for us. They're just saving face so that we can boycott them. It's all about money at the end of the day. And so I'm going to be interested to see where these organizations stand when all of this dies down. Like right now, it's the hype. It's cool to be Black. It's cool to say Black Lives Matter. It's cool to, put the hashtag on your website. But when this all dies down, go back to semi-normal, where are these organizations going to be?
Right. I asked that question too. I'm gonna let you go ahead, teammate. But I ask this all the time. I say, after the conviction of Harvey Weinstein, is Black Lives Matter the new Me Too movement?
Yeah.
For 2 years, we had a Me Too movement that consumed everything, and now it's a Black Lives Matter movement. But is it going to have some teeth? Is there going to be some economic development or some funds allocated to our community because we've been deprived?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Teammate, what do you want to say?
I was just saying that when it comes to companies and these corporations that are using the Black Lives Matter theme for their marketing campaign, we got to make sure that we hold them accountable, and we must demand that they have an equity portion that is attached to that. Like, what monies are you going to put into the community? And then we got to go further than that, y'all, because we cannot allow them to just continue to give money to the NAACP, to all the urban leagues across the nation. We can't allow them to give it to the Boys and Girls Club. We need them to give those funds and those monies to the grassroots organizations that are going to reach the people.
Absolutely.
They just gave out $60 million, right? So
who did?
The Yum Center here in Louisville, they just gave out $60 million. So a lot of people don't know that, but we need to focus and find out, okay, who did they give that money to?
Right.
Grassroots organizations. Those are the things that we need to follow the trail on. And we have to be vigilant in doing that because the money does not reach the people that it's needed for. We know that because of what's going on in our communities right now. Poverty, violence, and that's what we're seeing in our streets right now because the trickle-down effect that they say works, it does not work. It's not reaching the community. It's not reaching the hoods. I remember a couple years ago when Trayvon Martin got killed. I thought it was so disrespectful for Michael Jordan to give the police $1 million, then he gave the community $1 million, right? But when he gave the community $1 million, we didn't even know where it went to. We never even found, where did that money go to? Right. I have a nonprofit. It didn't reach my hands. I never let that money affect the Black community, and we never have to start paying attention to things of that nature. That's what this movement really needs to be about. It really needs to be that we stimulate the vote. So go early vote on October 13th. We pushing that, right? And then when it comes to policy, we have to make sure that it's what Martin Luther King was working on before he died. And the reason why he was really killed, the equity part of our civil rights. It has to be there. We have to do that now.
Absolutely. And truth be told, the property in West Louisville.
I'm sorry, it was Yum Brands, not Yum Center. I'm sorry, Yum Brands.
Yum Brands. Okay. But truth be told, the property in West Louisville is valuable. Hence the gentrification that's happening. And it could have been one of the reasons why the house that Breonna Taylor was living in was targeted, because they were trying to get her out of that house. Hearsay, I don't know how true this is, Brad, you can back me up, trying to get her out of the house so that they could buy that property up on that block. The city was trying to do that. Do you know what was going on with that, Brad?
Absolutely. And let's be clear, they weren't trying to buy it, they were trying to take it. If they were trying to buy it, it would have been a different story, but what happened was that there's a street called Elliott Street here in Louisville, if you're not from Louisville. It's in West Louisville, and there's a street called Elliott Street. Now, the allegations are that there's been complaints with Mayor Fisher in the 9 or 10 years that he's been in office that he's made major strides east of 9th Street, but none of those economic developments came west of 9th Street, which is primarily black. So part of his legacy, and this is what is alleged by the attorney, by the family of Breonna Taylor, the attorneys, they're alleging, Sam Aguilar is alleging that Mayor Fisher wanted to leave a legacy of doing something for West Louisville. So he was putting a housing development on Elliott Street. Now, Elliott Street is a short street. It's from like 24th to maybe 28th. But the block they were focused on was between 24th and 26th. When you go down, I walk down that street. So when you go down Elliott Street, I'm just going to throw out a number, and it's not an accurate number. Say there's 60 houses on Elliott Street. 45 of them are abandoned. So there's maybe 15 people living in these houses, and then there's several empty lots where houses used to be, and they have been either knocked down, torn down, or whatever. Currently, the city of Louisville owns 19 or 20 of the houses that are on the block. Pretty much every house that's there, the city of Louisville owns it. On the side of the street where they were planning this development was one house that an ex-boyfriend of Breonna Taylor's it was allegedly a trap house. And if you don't know what a trap house is, it's a place where they pack and sell drugs. So they were selling out of this home, and they were renting it from a white guy who was a homeowner. They were renting from him. I think he has several rental properties in the West. And that house, okay, let's go back. They raided that house. This investigation started on Jamarcus Glover, which is Breonna Taylor's ex-boyfriend. It started in January of 2020. This investigative unit that was investigating him started in December of 2020. This case was the first case they've handled. Jamarcus Glover was the first case they handled. So they targeted his home. I think they've raided the home maybe 4 or 5 times, and a couple times they found something. Other times they didn't, and they put pressure on the landlord to evict them. When you go down to codes and regulations in the city, that's where you go if you get a fine for things like nuisance. So they put a nuisance violation on the homeowner, meaning it's a fine and your house is being used as a nuisance because they're selling drugs out of it. When you talk to the people when you talk to the homeowner, he says he's never seen the city of Louisville target a home the way they've targeted this one. They gave him 3 nuisance violations within a matter of 3 months. So on your 3rd violation, the city can take you to court and forfeit your home because it's a nuisance to the community. So the city of Louisville gave him his 3rd violation, and instead of him fighting in the court, he just gave it to him. He gave the city of Louisville that home. So now the city of Louisville owns that property, and apparently this is going to be an economic development project headed by Mayor Fisher. I think it's called the Russell Project, and it's headed by Mayor Fisher. And yeah, they wanted that property. Now I'm sure that, look, when you go look at the home, I think the tax value on it is $15,000, but it looked like it's worth maybe $7,000 or $8,000. They could have gave the man $25,000 for the house. I'm sure he would have took it.
Right.
I'm sure he would have took it. But yeah, those are the allegations. So
wow.
Now I will say I don't think Mayor Fisher intended for anyone to get killed. I don't want to say that. What I'm saying is that he employed a team of rogue officers, and maybe these officers were officers that got the job done, but they got the job done because they were rogue. So this team of rogue officers, when you allow officers to operate in that capacity, bad things happen, as we saw.
Absolutely. Right, I'm gonna come back to you because I still want to get into what you uncovered after you listened to those recordings. But Max, after the Attorney General announced what he announced, I was assuming that the protests were going to stop, that, you know, we would kind of try to get back to some normalcy, even with the void that we felt in our hearts and our spirits about what the decision ended up being. But we continued. What are we protesting for now? What are we expecting by continuing to hold space in Jefferson Square Park, Breonna Breeway? What are we expecting now with the continued protests?
Before I do answer that question, I want to ask if I'm coming through clearly.
You are.
Okay. it's on my end. Then I did hear the question, but the connection's a bit choppy for me. It might be my battery, but anyway. Um, what are we protesting now? In my opinion, it's still the same thing: justice for Breonna Taylor and seeking for a change in the system. You know, finding ways to hold police accountable. Those who are racist, finding ways to find those racist police, those bad apples that we spoke of earlier, and trying to instill the fact that in this case, in this type of department, there can't be bad apples. Like there's got to be a way to rid of those bad apples. And the only way to come up with systems, in my opinion, to hold, uh, to find those little, I don't know, patterns, if you will, within certain police officers. I don't know. But before I get long-winded, jumping back to your question, um, fighting for justice for Breonna Taylor. That verdict was not anywhere near justice for Breonna Taylor, and especially finding out more information that that Daniel Cameron did not do what he was supposed to do with the grand jury. Finding out that there is more corruption happening. I'm not surprised at all that the protests, the investigation continues, because, in my opinion, it should. Civilly, I'm happy that Tamika Palmer got and the family got what they wanted from it. I say that, but I didn't specifically ask them, hey, did you get what you wanted from this? And they nodding yes or saying yes, but criminally so. It didn't. It just was not anywhere near justice whatsoever. So I'm not surprised whatsoever that the protests and marches have continued. But I will say it's my thought that we're still fighting for the same thing that we were in the beginning.
Mm-hmm. So can the decision be overturned? Can these officers be put back on the chopping block and charged if this goes to the next level? And what is the next level outside of the grand jury? I don't know the judicial process very much. I'm very ignorant to how it all works. So can they be charged at this point with this new evidence that has come out that the grand jury was not presented?
Erica, that too is something I'm ignorant about and have been asking myself the same question since that verdict has come out, and I have yet to find an answer, so I couldn't comment on that.
I would like to see that. What's frustrating to me is that Daniel Cameron has to have a deadline put on every decision that he makes by a judge. I mean, this man is continually will not do his job. So honestly, I'll answer your first question, then I'll lead in with this. Erica, the protests will continue. So right now, the next move that we're protesting, we're going to turn our protest into voting, because that's what needs to change. Everything needs to change with policy change, and we need to appoint the next leaders and identify who are the next leaders to be our council persons, our senators, our mayors. So we're identifying people strategically now that will represent us, because that's the only way that we're going to change what's going on, is that we have to change the makeup of what it looks like. And we can't expect old white men to sympathize with the things we want or give us what we want. They're never going to do that because they don't have our experience. Right. So we have to put people in those positions of power who have our experience and will give us the things that we need and the resources we need to be able to get our community back to where we have equity and we close that wealth gap and we get justice within the judicial system. So on October 13th, there's going to be a march from Breeway to the Yum Center, and that's the first day that we can go vote. So that's the action item that we're putting on the table right now, and that's part of the protest is voting. We're gonna and another thing that it benefits is that it holds down voter suppression, because we know that they play games with voting suppression. So say if you show up on October 13th and you don't have your ID on you, well, depending on who's that poller, they can say yay or nay. So if they say nay, guess what? You got another day to go back and get your ID. If you do it on November 3rd, now it's a different story, because you may not have to have time to go home and get your ID and make it back because you just got off work. So that's just an example of the of the benefit of being able to vote early and why we should react that and do that every time. You know what I'm saying? So that's the move, and that's our protest right now. So, and then another thing we got to keep in mind, an AG is only appointed for 4 years. So, I mean, after Daniel Cameron gets out, after we vote his ass out, you know what I'm saying? In the next 3 years, after we vote him out, a new AG can come and reopen this case and bring. So there's, we need to look at that also. I know I'm looking at it, because I think we all need to be involved in the process of choosing who our next AG in Kentucky is. We need to be a part of that process. And somebody who still has their eyes on the Breonna Taylor case if we don't get justice within these next 3 years.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Antonio. So, Brad, you listened. Did you listen to all 20 hours? Be honest.
No, I'm still listening now. So I'm on the last day.
Okay.
I'm on the last day.
What did you uncover from those recordings? Any new information that the public may not know?
Absolutely. One, let me start with this. I think we all need to advocate for grand juries to be abolished. The grand jury system is not a fair system and it's flawed. And the reason I say that is there's no judge. There's no judge in a grand jury hearing. There's no defense attorney or opposite counsel. All it is a prosecutor coming in, speaking to the grand jurors and painting their narrative. So whatever narrative the prosecutor paints is typically the narrative that the jurors go with. And that's what happened in this case. So we get into listening. The first maybe day and a half of testimony, I won't even call it testimony. I was upset because it was, I don't know if anyone's got a chance to listen to it, but there's these PIU, they're called Public Integrity Unit. It's basically internal affairs for police. All these officers involved gave a statement to PIU after the shooting happened. Some gave a couple weeks, but they all gave statements. The first day and a half of the grand jury hearings, they played the officers' PIU investigation tapes. And that was it. I mean, it's the officer telling the narrative of what happened. I'm sitting here knowing, specifics of the case. Like, that's not what happened. But it was, so that happened for a day and a half. I'm going to give everybody a bombshell on this because I want us all to attack this from different angles. So as we go further, Daniel Cameron, pretty much, they relied on all LMPD. Daniel Cameron has a team of investigators. I think he had 12 prosecutors. They heavily relied on all of LMPD's investigation and presented that to the grand jury. Now, we're arguing that LMPD is corrupt. So we wanted Cameron to step in and reinvestigate what LMPD investigated. That didn't happen. They used 90% of what LMPD had already. Cameron had some investigators go out and speak to people that were that lived in Breonna's apartment at the time. They went out there in June. This happened in March. They went out there in June. So they're talking to people. One of the interviews was Summer Dickinson. I think we all know Summer. Summer lived next door, I think in the apartments next door. She heard this and called 911 when it happened. This was one of the things that was disturbing. Summer gave a statement at the time of the shooting to officers that she heard one shot, then a barrage of shots, then silence for maybe a minute and a half, and more shots. So that's what she told investigators that night. The investigator for Daniel Cameron presented her story to the grand jury in this manner. He said, Summer Dickinson heard a shot, heard more shots, then a minute and a half, she heard what she might have thought were more shots later. But when we informed her that LMPD, I guess their truck or their armored unit, they have an armored vehicle, and it rammed through the gate of Breonna Taylor's apartments to get inside. So he told the jury, the grand jurors, that she heard this second crash and she assumed it was shots. So he was leading the grand jurors to say that the second noise was the truck crashing through the gate instead of what she said that they were shots. That was the first thing. The second thing is the big one. And I don't want to mispronounce his name, so I won't even try to say it, but there was a witness there that they used. 12 people said they didn't hear the police announce that they were the police while they were beating in our door. The police said they announced. Kenneth Walker said they didn't. One witness at the scene, this guy, him and Hankerson got into an argument before they knocked the door down. The night of the shooting, he said he did not hear the police announce police. So 2 months later, LMPD contacts him, and he says the same thing. He said on the third call, he says now, which is 2.5, 3 months later, that he hears them say, it's the cops, right? And this is on the phone. He's talking to an investigator on the phone. It's the cops, right? So they use that in the grand jury. And I'm sitting here saying, well, look, Cameron, you could have brought Summer Dickerson in, and you could have brought this guy in, right? Now, I watched the Vice TV interview yesterday. And on Vice, the reporter said that they contacted this witness's attorney, and the attorney said that Daniel Cameron's investigators misconstrued his words. He was saying that the police identified themselves to him as the cops, but not when they were going through the door.
Wow.
So that was a heavy statement because the jurors, that deciding if they announced themselves or not was the difference between murder and no murder charges. And they used this one guy to justify him, to justify police saying they announced, and he's saying they didn't, and they misconstrued his words. So, but to go back to your other question is that as far I've looked into this pretty deep. As far as the state, it appears that the buck stops with Daniel Cameron. He's the head prosecutor in the state. It stops with him. Yesterday, he made a statement where he responded to Ben Crump's call for a special prosecutor to be appointed, and he said, in this case, I am the special prosecutor. So that's where that lays. I think our only other hope is that there's a federal investigation going on now. The federal investigation can lead into civil rights violations. So, this is another thing. It's important. I almost forgot. This pissed me off. Daniel Cameron, he's a tactician. Daniel Cameron, okay, we all know now. We've known this from the beginning that there was false information used to obtain the search warrant. The detective that obtained the search warrant lied and said that the postal inspector said there were packages containing drugs going to Breonna's address. We now know that's a lie. We knew that already. So the warrant most likely wouldn't have been issued by Judge Mary Shaw with this false information. So what did Daniel Cameron do? He didn't investigate that part. He says, well, it was a legal warrant, so we're only investigating the shooting. Then he lied. I call him in a lie. Then he lied, and if you go back to his statement, I have it transcribed. In his statement when he did the press conference, he said, the reason that we did not investigate the application for the search warrant is because all of the officers here, Mattingly, Cosgrove, and Hankinson, did not participate in the investigation leading up to obtaining the search warrant, right? He said this. In Mattingly's PIU investigation, he says he did not participate in the investigation leading up to the search warrant. But SWAT team puts out their video because SWAT came on the scene that night. SWAT says, I take that back. Yeah, SWAT says, back in January, Mattingly contacted the Shively Police Department and asked the Shively Police Department to contact the postal inspector to check and see if there were packages coming to Breonna Taylor's home. The reason they were doing this is because a few years back, some LMPD officers had a discrepancy with some postal workers, so now the post office won't work with LMPD, period. Now, what is that? We have the largest law enforcement agency in the state that a government postal agency will not work with them. If that is a corruption, if that is a corruption, I don't know what is. But Mattingly clearly participated in the application of the search warrant. He's doing investigation. He's talking to Shively police officers, trying to get information and giving it back to Joshua James. So Mattingly lied to PIU. Cameron lied in his press conference, and the entire case should have been investigated by Cameron, but it wasn't. So the feds now have to investigate the application of the search warrant, if that makes sense.
It's all so mind-blowing because all of the evidence that was put out just publicly, like, we have enough sense to put together that there was some corruption, that they did not follow all of the rules that night, that something happened that they were trying to cover up. And so my question is, like, what would possess somebody like the attorney general or like the mayor to not seek justice. Like, what is it? Is the system that powerful? Are they that scared? Are like, who's pulling the strings, the puppet strings? Like, what is it? Because our city is destroyed. We have been set back at least 10 years economically. You know what I mean? So why wouldn't the mayor want to bring some type of peace back to our city? Why wouldn't the attorney general want to do that? You know what I mean? Like, why did they not do what was right?
Look, this is easy, and I'll tell you this from the Attorney General standpoint. I can't speak to Mayor Fisher. Maybe T. May can because he has a better relationship with him. But from the Attorney General standpoint, that's an easy question for me to answer. Look, we can't shy away from this. We all know this, right? Due to poverty and due to circumstances in America, there's a level of crime that takes place in the black community. We can't deny that. It takes place, right? So because crime takes place, law enforcement has taken the position that because they're criminals and they're black, we can beat them, we can murder them, we can kill them, we can do whatever because they're criminals. And often they treat all of us like criminals, even the ones that aren't, right? So because they've taken that position, the Republican Party has taken the position to represent the party of law and order. So the FOP supports the Republican Party. So any person like Daniel Cameron that represents the Republican Party, they're going to automatically default represent the police.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's we've known that from the beginning. It's not here to serve us justice. As far as the mayor is concerned, I don't know. The mayor has been wrong on this thing from the beginning by riding the fence. I don't really have a relationship with the mayor. I have a relationship with the mayor's office because I'm media, and I have to have access to LMPD, mayor's office, MSD. I'm in media, so I have to talk to everybody. But in saying that, what I will say is that the mayor's office, they know that they screwed up, and they know that they have to correct some things. And they're trying their damnedest to correct what they did over the next 2 years, but it's not going to get done because I feel like this city cannot heal with Mayor Fisher at the helm. It just won't. We need a new beginning. We need a fresh start. I personally support Chief Gentry. I think that she can do a lot in the 6 months that she has. I feel like we need to support her because she's laying the groundwork in the seed of what could possibly happen. But really, we have to deal with the FOP because really it's the union is the biggest problem. When you talk about the LMPD, they take their cues from the union, from the FOP union. So that's what we really need to deal with, to be honest. It doesn't really matter who they place as chief. We got to get to the FOP and we got to make sure that they hold less power than what they have. We got to weaken that union. That's what it's really about. So, I mean, but it's, this system wasn't built for us. That's why we have to be vigilant and put people in powerful places and who can pass laws that's going to benefit us and write policy that benefits us, Erica.
Right.
I mean,
guys, this conversation is so good, and I'm sure we could talk for another hour. We're almost at time, but I did have one more question. Well, actually, two more. The last one's going to be really quick and simple. But the family of Breonna Taylor caught some flack when a week before the Attorney General's announcement came out, they accepted the $12 million settlement. And some people were up in arms like they sold out. That was what it was about from the beginning. They were just out for money. Don't read the comments on the news. Gosh, it's like there were so many people, racist comments saying that's what it was all. I mean, just don't read the comments. Like they will piss you off. But how do you all feel about that settlement? And what people don't understand is that's typical. And $12 million is not enough. You know what I mean? To pay for somebody's life. So that's the least they could have done was paid them. Their lives are forever changed. You know what I mean? So how do you all feel about them accepting that settlement?
Can I start this one? So, throughout this entire case, it's been puzzling, and there are so many avenues and things. I said to myself that I could start investigating and looking into because for me, it wasn't just the live streaming, of course. The live stream, I see things and hear things, go home and research it and look it up, dissect it, educate myself on this and that and that and this. But I got to tell you, I told myself because I wondered that same thing, why did they accept this $12 million settlement? And around accepting that settlement, I heard, gossip and theories and hypotheses that I chose not to look into it. I said to myself, like, I don't know. I didn't look into why they accepted the $12 million. Was it too little? Like, I started, comparing it to other settlements that had happened in these particular cases with in other cities and states. One in particular that, it was more money. It was a lot more money that families receive in these types of cases. But what I did focus on was the police reform that came with that settlement. Police reform on search warrants, police reform on 911 calls and other things. I forget the word specifically. And I think police accountability reforms. But that was my main focus with that. But the settlement itself of $12 million, I decided to step away from, and I just thought to myself that was just something for Breonna Taylor's family, Tamika Palmer, and so if there was anything there, I just chose to stay ignorant to it and oblivious. But now I'm going to shut up and learn.
What do you think, Antonio?
Honestly, I'll keep it all the way real. I don't think it's our business as far as how much money they got, why they took what they got. I wasn't at none of us was at the negotiating table to really, to really understand what happened while they were negotiating that. The family, they were happy with it, and I think I'm speaking for the whole movement. They've allowed us to be a part of this story and a part of this movement, so we need to support them in whatever decision that they made. Now, what I do believe in is that we could really use Johnny Cochran right now, because what Johnny Cochran would do, he would bankrupt the whole city. And as he bankrupt the whole city, what he would do, he would implement policy for police reform, which is what did take place in the settlement. We do have real police reform in that settlement with the Taylor family. So they did do, a piece of what Johnny Cochran would do. So in saying that, I think in my opinion, I think we got there. But I don't want to sit here and I don't want to, go over, was it the right amount, was it the wrong amount? It's really about the family and what they thought was right, in my opinion. Yeah.
And technically, like Janice just posted in the comments, they did not get $12 million after they've paid their lawyers a third or whatever the percentages that they have to pay the counsel that they used. So what they will get at the end of the day is a drop in the bucket to what I believe is deserved, because their lives have been forever changed. Like there's no going back to normal for that family, period. Yeah. So Brad, did you want to weigh in on any of that before we go to the last question?
Yep. I was happy with the settlement. The part that made me unhappy is I wish it was more. The thought I had watching everyone talk, I'm like, I'm mind blown. Right? So I'm sitting here like, did we not pay attention in high school and not know the difference between a civil lawsuit and a criminal case, right? And there's two differences. They're two separate litigations, right? So when someone is going through civil litigation, let's put it like this. We all know what happens if you get in a car accident or you walk in Kroger and you slip and fall, right? People have no issue with, okay, whether there's pain and suffering or I was off work or whatever, right? But when someone dies, we can't put a price on their life, but unfortunately, we have to. There's a matter of pain and suffering there. There's a matter of paying for this person. You have to put a price on it some type of way. Now, when you're talking about a civil litigation, a civil litigation is only for money. It's only a lawsuit for money. A criminal complaint is something that Daniel Cameron would have to push. Civil attorneys don't push that. But in the course of this, the civil attorneys put in a lot of work and were pushing to have certain things uncovered in their civil suit. So you saw a protective order come up over the information that was regarding the civil suit. And I think the $12 million lawsuit, I think Mayor Fisher didn't. I think it was to save face in the public. I don't think Mayor Fisher wanted the public to know exactly how botched this investigation was, and I don't think he wanted all the details out. But everything that was put on protective order was available to Daniel Cameron. So it didn't stop a prosecution. He just didn't want to prosecute.
Right.
Now, had they waited to after the decision, would they even got $12 million with nobody being indicted for murder? You know what I mean? So
I think that's what's confusing too to the public, is they felt like since they did settle and give the family $12 million, that you don't get a settlement if there wasn't something wrong, if there wasn't, you know what I'm saying, if the process wasn't botched.
It's a settlement is an admission of guilt.
Exactly. So how then can you settle for millions of dollars and then not indict the officers that were responsible for it? Like, it's mind-boggling. Okay, so like I said, we could sit here for another hour talking, but we cannot do that. We are over our time, but I do have one question that I ask every panelist on our show at Unscripted. Don't think too long about it. Just throw out the first thing that comes to your mind. What do you know for sure? Antonio.
We need justice now.
Amen. We need justice now. Max.
Sorry, I had a little trouble getting to my mute button. What do I know for sure? I know for sure that I've learned a lot, but I've learned enough to know that I've learned very little, and of all that I need to learn what it is that I need to learn.
All right. And Brad. What do you know for sure?
What we know for sure is that those officers should have never been at Breonna Taylor's house. And for me, that search warrant was obtained on lies, which meant it was obtained illegally. For me, anything happened after that fact is criminal.
Right. Thank you all so much for this conversation. I've thoroughly enjoyed myself. I've learned some new information. Hopefully the audience, the viewers, you all have gotten some more insight into this case. Thank you all for your service. Please continue to do what it is that you have been doing, is covering this case, and reporting the true narratives that are actually happening in the streets. And one more question. Have you all had, I'm so sorry, I said this was over. Have you all had any opportunities come your way because of your presence with this case, like any paid opportunities, any like nationwide coverage, anything at all that you weren't expecting?
Sorry, somebody else wants to start.
No? And if you haven't, it's okay. I was wondering.
I'll leave the financial part off of it, but throughout the case since May, once a week, I would appear through call-in and through Zoom on a radio station in Las Vegas, another one in Chicago, and one in Florida.
Nice. Okay, so you're getting some nationwide pub. Okay. Awesome. I don't know. I feel this in my spirit. I feel like some news stations are going to be calling y'all for job opportunities. Would you be open for that, Max, Antonio, if you were to be offered a job at WHAS or Wave 3 or
so not specifically those two news stations, but I was offered a job. It was
really?
Yeah, maybe a month and a half ago, I believe. I turned it down. And I said, I want to stay independent. I want to stay a live streamer because I know I took the assumption that I would come on board and be live streaming for them, but and then it just seemed odd because I don't know, I could just live stream myself and be fluid and go where I need to go and do what I need to do. So I did turn it down, but that offer did come out, and I felt very thankful to. The New York Times used the first 45, 5 to 7 second video clips of the first 45 days of all my videos and used that on an article that they put out in the New York Times. And I was very appreciative of that because at that time when it was posted, I hadn't looked back at one video. It was all about the next day, charging devices, getting my skim milk ready, getting ready to be pepper sprayed. Here we go. And helping people out there. I wasn't even thinking back and then look back at what we experienced for 45 days. It was, it's just like, a couple tears came out. It was very heartwarming. It really was.
Right. And I didn't mean to put y'all on the spot. That just
No,
popped
no.
in my head. And I know y'all are not doing this for clout or to get any type of recognition. You're just doing this because the truth needs to be told. And I appreciate you guys for doing that. It just came to my mind like you all are doing such a great job. I'm sure some people have reached out to you for other opportunities. Not that you were doing it for that, but that could be a benefit of the time and effort that you all have put into shedding light on this situation here in our city. So thank you.
Oh, can I say one thing? Can I say one thing before we
Yeah,
leave? This entire situation, it taught me that there's a thirst out there for black media. So I decided I work constantly at my other job all the time, and I don't need to because my kids are grown. I'm just, I guess, being greedy. I don't know, but I told myself I'm scaling that all the way back, and I'm just gonna open up a studio so we can do this. Somebody can do it around the clock. So people want black media, and that's what we're gonna give them.
I love it. If there's anything that I can do with this platform or anything that I can do with Erica Denise to help with that effort, you let me know, Brad. Thank you all so very much for being here. Again, if you would like to donate and support Actors Theater of Louisville or La Casita, please hit the donate button at the bottom of this video or go to actorstheater.org and make that donation. Thank you all so much for tuning in. We'll see you later.
Thank you.
Thank you, Erica.